Oh my God. What is this? What happened here? Some sort of Tunguska event? Where are we? Northern Siberia in the 1900s? Is this where that meteor broke up near Earth and just blasted out hundreds and hundreds of square kilometres of forest? No. This is Glacier National Park. Oh, gee, didn't get that right. Glacier National Park in northern United States of America. Now, the history of this place is that the glaciers started melting in around the turn of the 20th century, 1900s. And by the 1920s, they noticed the rapid decline in the glaciers melting. I mean, these are just hanging on. These are the most southern glaciers in North America, because the mountains are modestly high. They're not super high, at just under 3,000 metres, 2,700 or so, and at a latitude that is just towards Canada, not in Canada. You know, it's up there. It's getting northish, and you've got a few glaciers, and that's why it's called Glacier National Park, and that's why they're very sensitive to melting. Let's pull right out here. Oh, go north, we've got tons and tons and tons. Pick a glacier anywhere. There's one right there. Look at that. There's a glacier. Look at that. Easy peasy up there in Canada. So down here, this is as good as it gets for the United States. And we just saw the forest. And I was just saying, 1900s, the 1920s, there was attenuation of these glaciers. And if they kept going at that rate, they would have been gone by the 1940s. In the 1920s, newspaper articles had predicted that the glaciers would be gone by the mid-1940s, and that never happened. Eventually, they had signs on the mountains saying that these glaciers will be gone by 2020, which they had to remove because they were embarrassed. The reason why they get it wrong is because they put it down to CO2, climate change, all that nonsense. Now, CO2 has risen proportionately, even though a very low level. I think it's only 0.1% higher. Is it 0.01%? I don't. It's very low. The natural levels of 0.3 or 0.03. Oh, sorry, I'm getting my percentages wrong. Get my decimal place wrong late at night. One or the other. Anyway, very insignificant. And proportionately, though, these should be gone if it was from CO2, because there's a lot more CO2 in the air now than there was between 1900s and the 1920s. But it never happened. They just attenuated and stopped receding and just stabilised. Well, I'll tell you what happened. Just like we saw at the start of this video, we had some obviously deforestation or some sort going on in the early 20th century, and it has never been recovered. I don't know what caused this. I don't know what the history of this is, but I predicted it, and I zoomed in, and that's what I was looking for. Logging. I found something a lot worse than logging. I found dead forest. So what caused it? I don't know what the history of the place is, but that's definitely the cause, because when you deforest an area, you get exposed surface area, land to the sun, and that will heat up a lot higher in temperature than any forest will. And when that land heats up in the lowlands, it rises, the air rises up the mountain, melts the glaciers. Very, very simple. No, not really. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that. Now let's have a look at the evidence here from NASA. If you want to appeal to authority rather than use your own common sense, it's right here. Air temperature average 12 degrees. This is late afternoon in winter somewhere in America, I guess. It's not a very hot area. But anyway, okay, here we go. We got some I'm just reading. Moderate resolution imaging spectroradiometer motors. Okay, that's where they take temperatures using satellites. We'll get into that later. And we'll just start with this. As we can see, the asphalt is hottest. No surprise there, 90 degrees Celsius or 66 Fahrenheit. Because it's a dark solid, heat-absorbing surface. Now we've got some lighter concrete here. It's going to absorb heat, but less because it's not as dark, 15 degrees Celsius. Here the grass is not like concrete, it's a few degrees, and this would be so much more, and there'd be such a difference between grass and concrete if there was in a region where there's higher temperatures. There'd be like 20 degrees difference. But anyway, here it's a couple of degrees, 13 degrees Celsius, and they don't take the temperature of the forest. Little misleading, and we can ignore the figures in the shade because it's obvious that they're going to be lower. So let's have a look at the MODIS spectroradiometer that was used by satellites to find the hottest place on Earth. Pretty hot in China there, and I think the hottest place in the world was found in the Lut Desert in Iran. Where is it? This is Flaming Mountain in China. Yes. And you'll notice that the darker sand has the higher temperatures here. As you can see at this end here, lighter colours. Darker colours in reality, lighter colours on this graph, because the lighter colours represent hotter temperatures. Now look at this dark area. That doesn't represent the colour of the bushlands. That represents the temperature, lower, in around 30 odd degrees. Look at that. And they're just shrubs. And instantly they're lower. So as you can see, deforestation causes massive, massive temperature rises, which is what we observed here when we zoomed into that valley, and probably just about any other valley here. I don't know about this one here as well. Yep, this one here as well. There's something seriously wrong with this forest. Really is. I don't know why it's so sick. But anyway, is it logging? Is it some I don't know what happened. Anyway, we keep scrolling down, and here we have a perfect example, northwest of United States near Portland. Obviously the forested areas are by far the coolest, going by this graph, and the deforested areas probably at higher altitude too, got higher temperatures. Obviously some very high altitude over here, and that is come up as a splodge on the map, these higher areas with the snow. We keep scrolling. Oh, perfect. Look at this. We've got Shanghai. We've got a concrete jungle here in the centralised urban areas, and around the edges where there's suburban areas, we've probably got trees and whatnot amongst that lot, and it's cooler. Great example of the concretification effect and deforestation effect. And here's a zinger. Look at this. Black roof. Look at the temperature of the black roof here. Magnitudes hotter, and that's just common sense. You know if you go out wearing a bloody black hoodie in the middle of summer, you're going to cook. You know, if you got to get light and white. There's white roof there. The green roof. Look, the green roof is actually cooler than the white roof. Wow. And people have done studies. What's going on? Although installing a green plant-covered roof is ultimate technique to combat urban. Oh, look at this. It even said it. The amount of heat, infrared heat that plants reflect rather than absorb is enormous. No one has bothered to point that out. Even a simple step like painting black roofs white can reduce temperatures. So the plant-covered roof is a real winner. That's the number one way to go about it. And NASA are spruiking this, and yet Greenpeace isn't. What's going on? NASA is more environmental than Greenpeace, because Greenpeace has fallen for the climate change nonsense, which is completely disproven by Glacier National Park. So, well, let's go and find out where the hottest place on the Earth is while we're here, just as a matter of interest. I know there's a link here somewhere. This is just a blah 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 da, 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 blah. There's a link here somewhere. It says here actually. 7 years of satellite temperature says that the Lut Desert was the hottest spot on Earth, and look at that. It's very hot there. There's a dark red bit there, and the reason is because the Lut Desert has dark sand. The second highest temperature was recorded in Australia, somewhere out here in Queensland. And that's because that spot there is known as the Badlands. It's dark red. The soil, not the colour of the map. The soil is the same colour as the map, and that means it absorbs 69.3. It came up for me. 68. Where's what? Look at that. It's beaten it. Come on. Did it say 60? Oh, no, it says 70 degrees. Right, the Look Desert. But the Badlands are just like half a degree behind, as we saw. So the Sahara, not as hot. It's light, typical desert sand. It's a light yellow. And it may be drier and more barren than Queensland, which it is. 69.3, it popped up then. That's the second hottest place on Earth, by the way, and in the Aussie outback. And this area here is probably more barren and drier and what have you than the Badlands of Queensland, but it doesn't have dark red sand. And that's the moral of the story, people. It's time to give up the climate change and get real. And if you want to appeal to authority, there's no higher authority to appeal to if you're an appealer of authority than NASA. So get nicked.